Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is One Day Today. We are on episode 86. I was just looking at the calendar and I just realized we've almost been doing this for an entire year. And kind of blows my mind because I this wasn't even something we meant to do. This all kind of came together as as a pivot from the pandemic. I feel like I like that the phrase, a pandemic pivot. And this is supposed to be an event. And what happened is the world shifted. And at first, I mean, if I'll speak for myself, I don't want to speak for everybody else, but at first it was scary. Like, what do I do? What do I do? The world's shut down, and I have all these plans, and I was going to do this, and I was going to do that, but what do I do now? And I feel like that very just process that I described of seeing the opportunity in our obstacles is really is what this space emphasizes in a larger scale for individuals. For like, we all have times in our life where we hit a wall, or we feel lost, or we feel scared, or we feel alone, or like, who am I? What am I doing? Like, how? Because we, at the end of the day, I feel everybody wants to feel they're beneficial. Everyone wants to share what they have, to support their families, to support their communities, support their world. And it really, what blows my mind, after doing this for almost a year is, no matter where people are from, who they pray to or don't pray to, what creed or what color they are, what unites, what everybody has in common, what every single person has in common, I cannot find one exception, is that it was through people, every guest who's been on the show, is through their struggles, through the things they were facing, through their what do I do? What do I do? Or the world feels like it's ending. It was through that situation, that dark night of the mind, through that lonesome valley. It was through that, facing that they discovered their own power, their own purpose, their own self. And it's something that every time I hear a story of someone sharing it, it's like it moves me and it inspires me. Just to emphasize that realization that no matter what you're going through, no matter what's happening in your world, not only is a way to break through that, there's a way for you to shine so bright that you bring everybody else in your community with you, where they can receive the gifts that you have and that you are. And this is just this tried and true, metamorphosis of humanity. Is like, it is through our struggles, it is through our traumas that we find wisdom and we find ourselves. And this is the space that we emphasize, just the beautiful people up to amazing things, despite, even because of what's happening in the world. And it's just an honor to have been doing this for a year, almost a year now. And it's, I would love to see an exception, because I feel like this is the recipe for this, like the vulnerability and the authenticity that it takes, and the courage that it takes to face what's holding us back, is really what gives us our power to share and contribute with the world at large. So thank you all for being here. Let me welcome our co-host, Matthew. Matthew, how's it going today, brother?
Doing good, man. Off to a bit of a slow start, a little bit of reluctance in showing up, but I'm here, and it's funny. I know people toss around this Marianne Williams quote quite a bit, but I don't hear many people actually speak the entire thing. And just from what you were just saying, I feel like I'd like to read the entire quote really quick because there's some beautiful things in it,
Yeah.
at least to me. And what she says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. Because like every time I hear that, it moves me deeply, and it's like it's so it's like it's something I feel like I need to hear that every day. Just because it's so like yeah, it encapsulates the entire process. Like speaking for myself, I've stayed small because of the fear of what people would accept if they would accept me or what they would think of me. And it's like I'm not doing myself a favor. I'm not doing the world a favor when I'm just playing small. Like the impact that I can make is far exceeds anything I could ever imagine if I'm just wearing a mask and trying to prove myself versus being who I've always been. Like I'll give you an example. I was sharing this the other day. I'm a songwriter. I play music, and this is what happened. This is how it gets stopped. Like just to that point of being small. I'll be at the piano or on the guitar, and I'll be playing, and just my heart will be just inspired, and just this music will just be flowing out of me without ease, and I'm just feeling it, and it's just coming in. I don't have to think about it, it's just there, and I'm just really inspired. And then somewhere in the process, a thought will come up in my mind. It's like, this isn't as good as the Beatles, this isn't as good as Bob Dylan, this isn't as good as Beethoven. And I'll just like stop. I'll just be like, well, better, I guess I'll give up on this song. And what I realized, and I had this realization the other day, is you know, we don't need a Beatles 2. We don't need a Bob Dylan 2. We don't need Beethoven 2. Like they were John Lennon, Paul McCartney. They were the best Paul McCartney and John Lennon. Beethoven was the best Beethoven. Bob Dylan is the best Bob Dylan. I don't need to be them, point two or 2.0. I need to be me, 1.0. I need to be me, like the fullest me, versus the version of me that has to wear a mask to be Bob Dylan, Beethoven, or the Beatles. And it's like that is something that I have to keep reminding myself again and again and again, because I will fall in that trap of perfectionism and not being good enough, and I'll compare and despair. So to your point, thank you for sharing that quote. I needed to hear that again.
Yeah, I kind of tear up every time I hear it or every time I read
Mm,
it. And it's like, I mean, I know I've had my struggles with it. I am just now getting to a point where I'm comfortable letting my light shine in this world.
mm,
Um, and it's, part of learning to get over that fear has been doing this virtual stage, like
mm.
letting go of what I am scared of other people will do when they hear what I had to say.
Right. Yeah.
I hold a lot of possibilities and questions that I don't hear asked in this world very often. And I've been scared to ask them. And it's part of doing this stage, like those questions have started coming out. And, um, you know, like the one I asked the other day on the stage the other day, if a society is capable of meeting the needs of every person in it, but consistently chooses not to, is that society worth participating in or perpetuating?
Mm,
I don't have an answer to that. I'm this society still exists, and in some ways, like it does feel appropriate for me to participate in it,
mm,
but only in only so far as I need to be what I am, which is a light, which is an example, which is um, you know people have used the word shepherd or guide or counselor or whatever, and I remember a buddy of mine once, he told me about a shaman he knew whose day job he was a dentist.
mm.
And that was what he was called to do to survive on a day-to-day basis in this society. He was a dentist, but he was also a shaman. um,
Hey,
so
like,
yeah. Oh, I think we just lost Abram. He did mention before we started that his laptop was acting up, so he will be back momentarily, probably. And in the meantime, I feel like this is actually a great time to go ahead and bring Suzy on. So, Suzy,
Hi
welcome to the
there.
stage.
Thank you.
Hi.
And hi there. It's really fun to be here. Thank you. And Matthew, um, about being part of a society that you're not particularly fond of because they're not really doing what they could be doing. When one wants to affect change, it's always good to be in the thing you want to change, not outside it. So that rather than, for example, when you see somebody doing something that is really not okay, and you approach them and say, that's not okay, they're going to give you pushback.
Mhm.
But if you get in there with them and say, hey, how about we go over here a little bit? How about we go over here a little bit? How about we go over here a little bit? And you can affect greater change by moving slowly. It's like the ship that got stranded in the Suez Canal. They dug out from under it slowly, 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 slowly. They kept digging out from under it. And finally, it was able to move forward. And so, what you're looking at is a very, very, very difficult situation that when you get in it to move it, it will change. It just happens slowly.
Yeah, inertia is a thing that exists. Oh, hey, ringy thingy.
I don't know how to turn that phone off, so I just hung up on whoever that was.
Ah, ah.
And I don't have that's interesting because when you talk about shining the light and you talk about fear of being as big as you are, there was a time when I was concerned that other people would be uncomfortable with me being as big as I am. And I'm a little woman, but I have a big light and a big presence. And there came a time when I finally realized the only way I can really make a change in the world is to be the bigness in me.
Mhm.
And because, and just be me,
Yeah.
as what Abram had said. So,
Yeah, there's an old Sufi story, and it's funny. I generally hold the intention to give more concrete, real world examples, like my own personal experiences, but this one feels very appropriate for some reason. There's this old Sufi story. A man dies and goes to heaven, and he meets God at the pearly gates. And God has been assigning people who have been coming up into different levels of heaven. And as this guy is watching, there's a rabbi that comes up, and the rabbi gets assigned kind of a medium level of heaven. And there's a car salesman who comes up who gets assigned like one of the higher levels of heaven. And guy finally gets to the gates, and God assigns him this really low level of heaven. And the guy's like, but like why? I don't understand. Like I tried so hard to be like Jesus and like Peter and like and like I tried so hard to be like Muhammad. I don't like why are you sending me so far down? God just looks at him and goes, yeah, you tried really hard to be those people, but I just wanted you to be you.
yeah, that's and sometimes being ourselves is scary, But I like being me,
I
and
do
there is
too now.
and there
Yeah.
is no other me. And when Ever was talking earlier about not being the Beatles and not being Bob Dylan and not being Beethoven, if he were being them, it would be redundant.
Exactly.
If I were doing somebody else, it would be redundant. We don't need, it's like the relationships people have. People are always looking for someone like themselves. Well, why? If you live with someone who's just like you, one of you is superfluous.
Yeah. There's a deeper fear that seems to come up there too that not everyone gets caught in, but I see a lot of people get caught in it, which is in like mimicking others. It is a way to avoid being self-sovereign, right? So it's a way to avoid being responsible and integral to oneself and thinking for oneself and discovering what you actually came here to be instead of instead of trying to emulate others. And that can be a very difficult thing. Like I've had moments with it too where um you know being me meant going against the status quo. Being me meant standing up and going, yeah, no, I'm going to walk that way instead. Like the whole crowd is walking this way, and I'm like, no, I'm walking that way.
I've always walked that way.
Yeah. Well, everyone will be back in a minute. I feel like this is actually a great time to go ahead and give you the stage. So at this point, Suzy, if you're ready, the stage is yours.
I was born ready, as they say. So, and again, thank you for this opportunity. Everyone asked me to tell you a little bit about myself and to talk about my journey, which is quite an extraordinary journey. Right now, I'm 77 as I talk to you. And I don't have the usual story of growing up under the porch or having it, being broke or having a difficult childhood. I had the best childhood ever. We were a very wealthy family. I was brought up to basically have everything I wanted. And I still didn't understand. I mean, when you have a lot, there's always someone who has more. There's always someone who has less. When you have a little, there's always someone who has more. There's someone who has less. I just remember having a phenomenally happy childhood for most of it. There were some problems here and there, but everybody's got problems. And when I went away to school, I was in boarding schools from 7th to 12th grade and then college. While I was in college, my mother told me I couldn't date the boy I was dating, so I ran away and married him. And we moved to New York City, and he went back to school, and I supported the family. And I created a fitness business. My mother was the nation's foremost fitness authority, Bonnie Prudden, and she started the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports, and she had her own TV show on NBC, and she was a big deal in the fitness industry, which actually did not exist at the time. Because the fitness industry took off in '83, and this was in the 50s and the 60s. So I got married in '63, and I started my company in '65. It was a fitness company in New York City. I had a very small studio, and I taught. My specialty was toddlers. And in the beginning, people thought I was very strange. And within 3 years of my business, nursery schools were calling me to ask me, what are you doing? And I would say, I'm teaching fitness. No, what are you doing? I'm teaching fitness. Well, it became the prerequisite in New York. If you wanted to get your child into a good nursery school, you sent them to me first because I was teaching kids success. And then I created that was on the Upper West Side, and I had one on the East Side. And then I started a summer camp in East Hampton, Long Island. And one evening in 1971, at a cocktail party in East Hampton, I sold my first book to William Morrow. I was talking to the editor, Joni Evans, and she said, I told her about the book idea I had. She said, I'd like to see it. And so I said, great. And she said, I'll pick it up. Do you have an outline? Of course, I said, yes. And she said, on my way back to New York City, I'll pick it up, because she would drive right by my house. And over the weekend, I wrote it. She picked it up on Monday. And Thursday called me. Yes, they wanted my book. And they offered me $3,000 for it. Got off the phone, called the William Morris agency, and said, I just sold a book to William Morrow. I need an agent. Got an agent. And my agent negotiated a $5,000 advance. And we were off to the races. The only problem was I couldn't write. My husband could. So he wrote the books. I did the programs. And in 1972, my first book came out. And then there was a progression from 72 to 92 when I published 11 books. And this is when my career took off. And there's a reason for me telling you this story. So my career got bigger and bigger and bigger. I became a household name. I wrote a New York Times bestseller before the internet, had my own TV show on NBC. I was the fitness reporter for the Today Show. I was a regular person on the Prime of Your Life on NBC, which was a Sunday morning show. And my career got huge. And I got a divorce. I sold my business. I did my Eat, Pray, Love adventure, ran out of money, moved to California, created a new business. And I did this several times. But I was always in that place of fame. People always knew who I was. Sold a book to Hay House in '88, and '89 did the Oprah show. You can see her sitting behind me. And 8 months later, I was homeless. So it took me 47 years to lose all my money, and I did it brilliantly. I was a celebrity. I was rich. I was famous, and I blew it. And I ended up homeless. Now, homeless for me at the time was not like homeless for other people necessarily, because I was rich and I was famous, except that I wasn't rich anymore, but I still was famous. And the second night that I was without a home, I never slept in my car, thank God, but I had wonderful friends, and they let me stay in their homes. The second night, I was in San Diego staying at the Hyatt La Jolla, all expenses paid, because I was speaking there. And I was there for 2 nights, and then on the following Saturday, I went to Rancho La Puerta, a 5-star spa in Tecate, Mexico, because I was speaking there. I was famous. Now, when I would drive in, and I spent a lot of time at Rancho La Puerta that year and the year after speaking, and I would drive into Rancho La Puerta on Saturday morning and not knowing where I was going to be going the following Saturday. Where would I be sleeping the following Saturday? But my life unfolded magically when you lean back into the, that's what I told Gary Zukav when he asked me, how did you do that? I said, I leaned back into the arms of God. And when I didn't know where I was going, I would look up and I would say, okay, God, where do you want me? And a door would open. I spent 6 weeks in Maui taking a course, all expenses paid. Spent 2 other weeks in Maui giving a course. I spent time in Canada giving a course, time in New York writing a book. It was magical, absolutely magical. And what's happened in all those years, I've learned a lot. And I've created a lot of businesses. I have a new business now. It's called Itty Bitty Publishing. And we publish small books that make a big difference. I call us the new dummies. The difference between dummies and itty bitty, dummies are books that 350 pages you have to read with the yellow highlighter. And itty bitty books are the yellow highlights. An itty bitty book is just this big, just this thick. And it's 15 chapters, 30 pages. It's the cliff notes, so to speak, of what somebody needs to know about a topic. 95% of Americans don't read, and we all need information. When you get a big, thick book, it's like, oh gosh, when am I going to have the time to read that? And most people read about 30 pages. I didn't know that when we created the Itty Bitty line. 30 pages, this is a 30-page book. And then they put the book down. So what we did was we created books by experts, and the purpose of the book is to grow your business. So when you're watching this and experiencing this right now, think about what your message is that you want to give to the people in the world. And think of a way you could do a big book, but a little book can take them from the book to your website, to your webinars, to all the things that you're doing in the world, because you make a difference. You need to get out there, to get seen, to give your message to the millions. What happened with this book, I love this, I've got a bunch of stories. What happened with this book, I got to put it in the right place. Pam loves space. She wrote a book about space. And she took this book to the Boys and Girls Club of America. They need to learn about space. And they want to learn about space. And the Boys and Girls Club, yes, come teach us about space. And so they're setting it up so that she's going to be talking to the Boys and Girls Club of America, probably right now, magically on Zoom. Before she would have to travel to all the different places. Now she just gets in front of her computer. And the beauty of this for Pam is that not only does she get to give her information to all these kids, they want to buy her book, and they're raising money now to buy her book. There are 4 million kids in the Boys and Girls Club of America. That's 4 million books. So when you're thinking about your book, step into a different arena of how to sell it. Another example, and I want you to hear these, because a lot of people think, okay, I'll get my book, I'll write my book, I'll put it in the bookstore, and I'll wait for it to sell. No. You write your book, don't bother with the bookstores. You sell it on Amazon and the digitals, and then you use it to market you and your programs. This gentleman is a safety expert. He was the head of safety for the Apple building in San Francisco, which is a mile long. It was his job to make sure that everybody that walked on that site in the morning walked off safely in the evening. This book was translated into Chinese, and the Chinese government invited him to China to revamp their safety protocol and to lower pollution. We have another book line. I just love this. I'm able to do, having done all the different things that I've done, when my sister and I created Itty Bitty Publishing 6 years ago, I looked at my experience in writing books, my experience in publishing books, not me personally, but being published by the New York houses, my experience doing workshops, my experience doing seminars, my experience as a fitness expert working with people, my experience as a hypnotherapist working with people, helping people change lives. That's what I have always done. And when someone came to me and said, I have a children's book. My sister said, we don't do children's books. And I said, why not? And she said, well, we just don't do them. So I wanted to do a children's line, and I had to convince my sister, who at that time was my business partner, and she had a little dog called Little Dog. So I said, well, why don't we call the children's line Little Dog Press? And so she said, yes, this is our children's book. Now, the reason I'm showing this to you is not just because it's a children's book. This is a book about autism. The woman who wrote it is slightly autistic. She has 2 children who are autistic, and the artist is autistic. This book is to bring awareness of autism to the world. And she did an interesting thing just this morning. I was on a networking group that this woman belongs to. I didn't know it was her turn to present, and she did her whole presentation about her book. And she had her 10-year-old autistic daughter read it with her. And a friend's child, who is about 20, is the one who did the art. So just by having this book, she was able to get her message out to more people by being on a Zoom call. That's what you can do with an itty bitty book. And that's what you can do with a Legacy Press book, which is another publishing company that we have within our company. This gentleman, I love this story too. He was one of our very first authors. I can't get, okay, there we go. It's about sales. And he does very well, and he's always done very well. When he did this book, he went from making $100,000 to making $750,000 a year in 2.5 years, using this book as a marketing tool. Now, I hear all the time that your book is your business card. I choose to say your book is your business builder. You take your 15 steps. You have 15 webinars, 15 seminars, 15 teleclasses, and then you can have 15 under the 15. You can have workshops, programs. It gets you booked as a speaker. It gets you out there. And what I want to do is to give you all a free gift. And so, Matthew, if you can put that out there for people or tell me what to do, there we go. If you download that or type that or do whatever you do with that and go to free ittybittypublishing.com 243781/event-free-gift.htm. Oh, I've got a great gift for you. Being a hypnotherapist, I created 4 processes to help you grow your wealth. And I'm going to give those to you at no cost. Also, I created 4 processes to write a bestseller. And I'm going to give you that at no cost. So if you go to this address, and just type in your information. You will receive those gifts from us. And I hope you write a bestseller. I also hope you make much more money, make a bigger difference in the world, become part of the Itty Bitty family. And we do Zoom calls every Tuesday night where I have speakers. You can come and join us there. It's a big world, and you'll make a big difference by writing your book, showing up, playing big, and shining your light.
Oh, looks like Abram was. Oh, maybe he's coming back now. But thank you.
Me and
Suzy.
my twin brother here. Thank you so much, Suzy. I caught while my computer crashed. I caught what you're sharing, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I think I love how you've compartmentalized your business into like supporting people in all these different ways. You know, whether it's just the children's book on autism, and how like I mean how appropriate like a Be Like Me. It's like I just seen the connections and everything you're doing, but how everybody I had a lot of conversations with you before the stage about books and the power. I mean, you were one person who encouraged me early on to write a book for the very purposes that you just described. And I just hearing you talk about it again, it's really helped emphasize that for me. It's just like a book is not just a business card. It is a platform that you can
Definitely.
share yourself and what your impact that you're intending to make. And that's everything you said is, I wish I took all notes because it's so powerful because
you've got a direct line. You can call me. But I want to say something, Abra. You mentioned the book is not a business card because you heard me say that. And I want to say why I feel that way. Yes, use your book for influence makers, the people who, if someone can get you on a podcast or a TV show or a newspaper article or something like that, yes, give them a book. But don't just give your book to give your book. I don't like it when someone says, "May I give you my book?" I say no. And there's a reason when a book comes to you supposedly as a business card,
mm-hmm.
and I'm looking at it, I have to find the person's information. Where is this? 9 times out of 10, it's not even in here unless they put it here.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't find the phone number, you can't find the email address. You've got the name, but you don't have anything else. Next, what are you going to do with the book? The person who's been given to. I don't throw books out. So now I've got a stack of books that I don't want because someone wanted to not give me a card because they'd be afraid I'd lose it, and they give me a book. Interestingly, when you give a card, the person may lose it. You don't want to do business with that person anyway. And I always say, when you're doing business with you want to get the business card, because I would say 99.9% of the people who I give my business card to never call me. But I call 100% of the people I get their business cards from, if I have permission to call them. And I was asked once to teach a course in follow-up. It's not my topic. And I said to the event coordinator, she asked me, would you do a session on follow-up? And I said, that's not my topic. And she said, yes, but you're so good at it. And I am. And I learned something else this weekend about follow-up, which I didn't know, and I'm really happy to learn. So what I did in this talk is I have a big basket. And it's got, it's stuffed to the top with business cards. When I get a business card at an event, I always put it in my database, and then we start calling them. And we call and call and call and call until my one of my coaches says, you market till they buy or die. And I always say, after about 1.5 years, if you want me to stop calling you, please tell me. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. People have signed up to do a book with me 1.5 years to 2 years after they've given me their information, because the timing wasn't right. So I said to the group, I said, how many of you have a basket like this? And they all raised their hands. I said, how many of you called everybody that's in your basket? And all the hands came down, or 90% of them came down. I said, this basket has garnered me $500,000 in the past 4 years. Start calling the people in your basket. And immediately, it's like Don't even, come in from the event, go right to your computer and enter the names. You can take a pit stop first and get a glass of water, but that's it. So I learned this week, and it's like I could kick myself for not knowing this before, that when you follow up is not just procuring clients. Follow up is what you need to do after you've gotten the clients. And so it's about calling them up, making them feel wanted and loved after you receive their money, not just before you receive their money. And that was like, I could have had a V8. That was a light bulb. And I'm very excited about it because I'm creating a whole new follow-up system now so that I can touch my clients continuously after they've signed up to work with me.
I love that. And I wonder, so is part of what, how can I put this? Is part of what made you so good at follow-up simply because you already found something that is uniquely you? Like, and so it kind of came a little bit more naturally to you, or is that something that was just a practice that you drilled into yourself?
I've always used the phone. I said the money's in the phone. Now, when I was first in business in New York, my first business, I was 22 years old when I started my first company. And I didn't know anything about business, but I knew that if I wanted somebody to hire me to sign up in my fitness school, I had to talk to them. I mean, it makes total sense that we live in a digital age and a lot of people are just doing email. Email works and it doesn't work. So when I meet somebody, like this morning, I was on a call, and there's several people who want to do books with me. Now, I know if I don't call them, they're probably not going to call me. So it makes total sense for me to call them. And it always has. I guess it's just the way I'm built. I don't know, but a lot of people don't like it. They feel uncomfortable. Well, I don't want to. This is funny. I had somebody working for me who made calls for me to set up appointments. And I asked her one day, I said, have you made all the calls? She said, yes, I've called everybody twice. And I said, call them again. And she said, well, I don't want to disturb them. I said, that's your job description. So the only way to get somebody to create a relationship with somebody is to connect with them. I mean, when Abram and I started talking to each other, we connected. And I'm so glad, Abram, that you're doing a book. I am so glad.
I mean, well, thank you. It's been your encouragement that has kept me on that path. And there's been a lot of unknowns because what this book is going to be is a platform for the vision of what this whole nonprofit is, and structuring that and sharing, but it's exactly what this virtual stage is like that recipe that I feel like we've discovered here is it's vulnerability plus authenticity equals more vulnerability and more authenticity. And it's that simple. And when we can share, and when everyone can share, just like back to the Marianne Williamson quote, it's like when we can share our light, people share their light, it gives others the courage to do the same.
Yes.
And it's like spotlighting that process is what this virtual stage has been. And that's what the book is going to be. It's very much like we all have gifts. And I just want everybody to receive the almost 8 billion gifts that this world has. And that's just if we will give one. And I know we all have many gifts. And so it's like, that's what inspires me, just like the new gifts we can create. And it's like, but I feel that's a logical step, is to hold this vision up and to share it. And that's why I see what we're creating as a book that's going to really make a really big impact, because it's like as you shared, that's how we can stand out to share our message. And people, it's a difference between I can just tell you about my vision. Like, here's my vision, Suzy. Here's what I think. Here's what my vision is. But a book you can feel, you can open up,
yes.
And it has
you can touch it.
Yeah, and it's like it brings it to reality. It's outside of just up here.
Yes.
So, and I think there's a power to that. And it's even as digital as the world goes, there will still always be a value in books for that purpose.
Oh, it's funny. I mean, I have more books in my house. I read a couple a week, and I like holding a book. And I'm looking around in my other rooms, and I mean, bookcases stacked, and it's sort of like the bookcases behind you, Matthew, and in every room, and not in my bedroom. I was told by a feng shui person not to keep books in your bedroom, because when you keep books in your bedroom, you're dealing with the thoughts. You don't sleep as well because you're dealing with the thoughts of all the authors. So I took all of my books out of my bedroom and put them in the hallway. I have them in the living room. I have books stacked in my kitchen, and I buy new books every week, so I can hold them and feel them. And I have certain favorite authors that when I see them, when we were flying around the world, and which I used to spend 10 days a month on the road, I'd walk into an airport, and the first place I'd go is the bookstore to see what new books, because the airports always have the newest books. And I would sometimes find that when I was reading Harry Potter, those books were fat. And I remember seeing the third Harry Potter book in hardback in an airport, and I was going on a 4-hour flight, and I thought, okay. And I already had 2 books with me, but I didn't have a Harry Potter book, and I was between Harry Potters. So I bought it immediately and at full price.
There's something you were pointing to when you were speaking, Suzy, and what Abram just said kind of brought it back. There was one word that just kept screaming at me the entire time you were speaking, and that was imagination. What you created with Itty Bitty Publishing is a product of your imagination.
Well, let me tell you my itty bitty story, if I can find on my itty bitty desk, my itty bitty pile. All right, so this is the itty bitty story. Now, I've written a lot of books. My sister, who was my business partner, now she's retired. We've written a lot of books, probably 25 between the two of us. And we published both with big houses and self-published. We've learned the things to do and not to do. I took a seminar with James Malinchak, I think it was in 2006 or 7. And I took it again and took my sister to it. And James always talks about writing small books. I only wrote big books at the time. So on the way back, and my name's been on everything. I was a famous person, and my name was on everything, my TV show, my books, everything. And on the way back to Los Angeles, driving from Las Vegas, I said to my sister out of the blue, why don't I write the book, Suzy Prudden's Itty Bitty Weight Loss Book, because he wanted us to write a small book. And we got back to LA, got back into the business. I was a hypnotherapist at that time with a weight loss company. And it was my company. It was a franchise. And my sister wrote the book. And we didn't know anything about publishing, didn't know about covers, didn't know anything. And this is the book. And it's not the most attractive book, but we didn't know what we were doing. But we did it. And we bought, at that time, you had to buy 2,000 copies to get a good deal. I think I have 1,800 left. And this is from 2006 or 7. Or I can tell you actually right here is where we got the copyright. 2008. Okay, so this came out in 2008. We got rid of about 200. And in 2014, I said to my sister, do you think you could change the cover of the weight loss book and make it smaller? And she did. And this is the book that she came up with, The Amazing Itty Bitty Weight Loss Book, instead of Suzy Prudden's weight loss book. And I'm looking at it. You sure you want to take my name off the book? She goes, I don't care. Pete's, that's what I call her. This is $1 million business. We don't have to write all the books. We were in business 3 days later. We had our first author signed with us 2 weeks later. And we had our first published book 6 weeks later.
Mm.
Imagination is a wonderful thing, but without action, it's just imagination. Talking to God is a wonderful thing, but without action, it's just talking to God. I talk to God all the time, and I take action. And for those of you who are listening to me and watching me right now, action is imperative if you want to take your work into the world. If Avram weren't writing a book, people wouldn't be able to know what he has to tell them. Yes, he can think it. He can embody it. He can be it all he wants. But if he doesn't write that book, the people who would receive that book, read that book, and learn from that book, it wouldn't happen. Marianne Williamson is a brilliant teacher. Without the Course in Miracles, without all her books, only a very small number of people would know it. Those of us who live in Los Angeles when she was teaching here. Now the world knows her, and the world knows her words.
Exactly. And this brings it full circle. Like this takes it back to what you and I were talking about at the very beginning about affecting change.
Mm-hmm.
And the one question that stands out the most is, we, like I especially, and I know Abram has experience with this too. I'm not sure when this actually started or what your experience with school was, but for me, school wasn't so much as an education as it was an indoctrination, and it was a destruction of imagination. Like it was a process through which creativity was weaned out in a lot of ways.
That's unfortunate, really unfortunate.
Yes. And this is happening to millions of kids growing up.
Oh, more now than ever.
Yeah, exactly.
More now than ever. Yeah.
And so, the question is like, so we have the basis of the process. It starts with imagination. Imagination inspires action. Action inspires change. But for those who have lost touch with their imagination, or, I don't know, maybe there's a better way to say that, but for those who don't play with their imagination anymore, is there something that you would like to share that can maybe help them reconnect to start that process?
That's a wonderful question, and I haven't got a clue. I mean, I really don't. I know for me, I hated school. I hated school with a passion. And I flunked 7th grade with straight Fs. That takes talent to flunk a class. I mean, a grade. Straight Fs across the board, except I got A's in dance, drama, sports, horseback riding, and art. When I was in kindergarten, my report card said, Suzy is a very social child. She has an excellent appetite, often asking for seconds, but she's very lazy. She doesn't do what she doesn't want to do. Now, I think that's brilliant. Why would I do what I didn't want to do? I hated school. It's true. And I've always thought the challenge with with a big imagination with someone like me is I get an idea and I go, oh, let's do that. Oh, let's do that. So I have to be very careful of the shiny object syndrome. I'm getting better at it. But imagination, I was very blessed in school. I hated school. And after I flunked 7th grade, I was sent to boarding school. And it was a great boarding school. It was a school up in Lake Placid, New York. This was in 1954. And it was organic. We grew all our own food. This is in the 50s. We grew all our own food, our own chickens, our own beef, our own pig. It was a school that promoted being outdoors. We had our own ski hill. We had our own sugar bush. We had our own. We had a barn with horses, and we rode horses. I mean, it was an amazing place. It was a perfect place for me. And in high school, I went to a school that was affiliated with the United Nations. So we had kids from all over the world. And if you were 2 Black kids that were best friends, you still couldn't room together because the headmaster wanted a black kid and a white kid to live together. If you were from Israel, you lived with an Egyptian. And it was set up so that it was a school that was a school of diversity that became one heart. It was interesting. Years later, I went to a reunion. It was in I can't remember. It was in the 80s. And I can't remember, I think 30 years since I'd graduated. And they had a reunion. It was at the school. And so the people were staying all over the Berkshires. It was in the Berkshires in Massachusetts. And we came together from, the school started in 1947 to 1974. So they were graduates from that whole time span. And we were so different. There were beatniks, there were businessmen, there were people from Europe, people from Asia, people from the Mideast. We were all from different backgrounds. And I was standing on the knoll when people were gathering before dinner on Saturday, just standing, watching people come together. And I felt this one heart. And this is what you're trying to do, Abram. I felt this one heart. We were so different in who we were in our personalities, but we were absolutely one in our heart. And it was a beautiful moment.
Wow.
And that, like, I feel like you just gave an answer. Which is,
but that's how God works, Matthew.
right? Like how can I put this exactly? Go out and challenge yourself to meet people you don't normally interact with. Seek diversity.
Yeah, carefully right now.
Yes, but seek
Carefully.
diversity.
Yeah, I would second that or triple that, because I would say some of my biggest lessons I've learned, biggest insights, my biggest growth has been from interacting with people that I don't understand or that I don't agree with. You know, and I've said this before, you don't have to like everybody, you can love everybody. And it's like it's so easy, you know, we're all ants floating on this rock, and it's so easy for us to be, you know, of all and everything in this ever expanding universe, that I solely understand truth and nobody else has anything to contribute to me or to truth. It's just like this. It's just like humility is so powerful from that space. When we just, it's like, why can't I just be skeptic of my own skepticism and hear opinions that are different than my own, just for the sake of what maybe it will reinforce my opinion or maybe it will open up my mind. But it's like, if I think I know what truth is solely and no one else has anything to contribute, it's just like, it's my loss and it's the world's loss and it's everybody else in the world's loss. Like there's nothing to be gained if I think I know everything. And it's just like, there's so much beauty in this world that we could never imagine until we actually experience it. And it's like, until we go out there and in action, you know, not just the idea of it, but actually do it. You know, the first time I went to church, it was because I didn't know, I had no idea. It wasn't because I agreed or disagreed, it's because I wanted to hear what they had to say. And that only opened the door for me to find myself and find God. And if I was just carried the secular mindset that I grew up with, I never would have challenged myself. I would have just like, well, anyone who believes God is woo woo and crazy. And it's like, you know, and it's like, there's as many people who are crazy and woo woo who are atheists.
Yeah, I was very blessed. My mother was Catholic. My father was Jewish. I was baptized Episcopalian. And I went to church when I visited a friend whose family went to church on the weekends. I went to synagogue when I was visiting a friend whose family went to synagogue on the weekends. We had no religion in my family. And I started a spiritual journey. I didn't know it was going to happen, but I had no connection to God until I divorced my husband. And all of a sudden I was out on my own in a whole new world. And it was as if I stepped into a new reality and spirituality came to me. And without even realizing it, I basically stepped into the arms of God. And and that's been my journey ever since. I became a minister of an interfaith church so that I could marry people. I just thought that would be a hoot. And it is. I've married, it is. And how many marriages I've done? I've done 4 or 5, not a lot, but I've been to Maui twice, I've been to Ojai, and it's wonderful. And when I do a wedding, I sit down with the couple and I say, okay, what do you want to tell each other? So they write the ceremony. It's fun.
Yeah.
I got so many tricks in my pocket. I've done so much.
Well, thank you for sharing your tricks with us.
There is one other thing I'd like to circle back to really quick if we can.
Certainly.
And that was, becoming homeless. Like when you said that, like that whole journey of being homeless and the magic that came from that.
Yes.
Like that mirrors my journey so like succinctly. Mine happened on Hawaii. I'm on the Big Island now, and I spent 4 years as a wandering hippie, sleeping on beaches and and it was magical. Like
Yes.
I did not discover how powerful I could actually be until I lost everything.
Yep. Yeah, and it's
And
scary too.
yeah, it
And
is.
you have to acknowledge the scariness. It's like, whoa, this is really scary. I'm not happy. And then, okay, and again, okay, God, where do you want me?
Yeah.
And trust that, will I have enough? I remember one time I didn't have enough money to buy gas, and I needed gas. And I went to get the gas, and I didn't realize that I didn't have all the money that I needed. And I went up to pay for it. I said, look, I'm really sorry. I don't have the cash right now. I'll come back tomorrow. And then I went and found soda cans in my garage where I was staying, took the soda cans all back, and I had, I don't know, $3. And I took the $3 to the gas station, and she looked at me, she said, I didn't know you'd come back. I said, of course I'd come back. And yeah, but I have a really good, scary story.
Go.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right. I'm in New York City. I'm staying at a friend's house on 22nd and 2nd. And he was in California with his wife. And he said, Suzy, I'm going to be gone for a month. Why don't you stay in my apartment? We were very good friends for years and years. And so I was staying there. And my sister lived in New York at the time on 65th Street and Lexington Avenue. And I'm giving you streets for anybody who's been to New York. You have a picture of where I was. And I had been living really close to the bone with money. And what I would do at that time was, because, again, I had been rich and famous, and I had a lot of credits with credit cards because I hadn't gone bankrupt yet. I just couldn't pay my bills yet. So I would write a check to American Express and get $250, which I would then live on for a little while till I'd make some money, and then I'd pay them back. And then I'd write another check. And this went on because I got caught in that awful loop of, oh, you got to pay the debt, but then you got to take debt, got to pay the debt, got to take debt. And it's a terrible, frightening place to be. So it's Christmas Eve, and it's cold in New York. And I left my sister's apartment on 65th, and I'm walking down Lexington Avenue, and I pass an American Express office. And they're in there, the people. And I have $250 with me. And that's all I have. So I thought to myself, well, I don't want them to have to chase me. Why don't I go pay my bill and then write a check, doing the same loop-de-loop again? So I went in and I wrote my check and I paid my bill. And then I didn't write my check. I paid my bill with the cash. Then I wrote my check and she said, oh no, American Express has cut you off. I had no money. I had no money. I'm in New York City. I live in Los Angeles. I didn't even have a subway token to get me down to 22nd Street. I had no money. Matthew, are you resonating with this?
Yeah.
Because I'm watching you go, and my stomach is like, I have no money. And I said to the woman, I said, I can we negate that transaction? And that poor woman, she said, no. I said, please. I don't have any money. I'm from California. I'm going to cry. I'm supposed to have dinner with my son tomorrow. It's Christmas. And I have no money. I don't even have a subway token to get me to where I'm staying. Can you please negate that transaction? Just tear it up, pretend it didn't happen. This woman didn't know what to do. She absolutely didn't know. I could have been from the American Express office testing her. I finally looked at her and I said, I have no money. It's Christmas Eve. And she tore up the paper and gave me back the $250. It was a truly magical moment. And I truly felt the presence of God.
Mhm.
There are angels everywhere.
Yeah. And I feel like you, what I've discovered is that when I trust that.
Oh, yeah. It is a trust.
Yeah.
It's like asking for something, letting it go, and trusting that it'll show up, but you don't always know. You definitely don't know how it's going to show up. I have some other. I don't know how much time we have, but I got another great story if you want it.
We've got a little bit of time. There's one thing I'd like to add, because this comes back to one other point in all of this, and my experience like that was on Kauai, and I was camping on a beach, and
Which
I woke
beach?
up Secret Beach.
I know Secret Beach.
Yeah, like right by the spring.
Yeah,
Right by.
I know
Oh,
exactly where you were.
oh,
Yeah,
I love.
Spent a week
Yeah,
there.
that was my home for about 3 months.
Wow.
Um, but I wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning and my backpack is gone.
Oops.
And I spent, I don't know, 2 hours running up and down the beach, ran all the way up the trail up to the parking lot,
Mm-hmm.
just going crazy searching for it. It's just gone. And finally, I give up and I go back to sleep. And the next morning, I wake up and I start breaking down my tent, and my tent breaks. And it breaks
Oh.
in a way that I can't repair it. So it's just done. And this was a nice tent. It was a nice one-man backpacker's tent, super lightweight. I got it for like $75 when I first got on the island, and it was a $400 tent basically, and it's gone. So now I have my sleeping bag, my swimming trunks that I'm sleeping in, my sweater that I was using as a pillow, and my cell phone, and that's it. That's all I've got. Like the last $20 that was in my backpack is gone. All the food that I just bought for the week is gone. Um, I've got nothing, and I remember sitting on that beach, like just enraged, screaming at the universe, like, you fixed this. I showed up, I'm here, I'm following my heart. You fix this. I want food, clothing, and shelter by the end of the day. You hear me? I fix it. And finally I calmed down and I hiked back up to the road. I hitchhiked into town, and at the time there was this outdoor kava bar that was right on the edge of Kapa, and it was kind of like this spiritual nexus for the island at the time. I walk up. Right before I sit down, this car pulls into the parking lot, and two of my best friends get out, Alexandria and Catherine, and Alexandria's like, Matt, we found you. It's Catherine's birthday. Get in the car. We're going to a party right now. And I'm just like, oh, all my stuff just got stolen. Like you have no idea where I'm at. Like, I kind of need to deal with this. And Alexandria just looks me dead in the eyes, and she said, don't worry about that right now. We can deal with it later. Get in the car. We're going to the party. And in that moment, like, something happened. Like, something just gave up, and I surrendered.
Mm-hmm.
And for the next 3 days, I had everything that I needed exactly when I needed it.
Mm-hmm.
I had the most comfortable place I've ever stayed in, like this nice little hobbit hole up in Honolulu. I needed khaki pants and a blue shirt for a choir concert, and I got this really amazingly nice silk shirt and like these hemp pants, and they were crazy comfortable. Food just showed up out of nowhere, and then on the third day, I'm back at the kava bar, and Loren she's behind the bar, and like she's heard what's happened, and she says, "Well, have you checked Craigslist?" I was like, "Why would I check Craigslist?" She said, "Well, go check the lost and found." She said, "Like a lot of times people steal stuff and they feel guilty about it, and so they post
Oh,
it on
that's
there."
amazing.
No, so I go to the library and I get online, and literally the very first post is my backpack. 3 days later.
Did it have the $20 in it still?
No, it did not have the $20. It did not have the $20. It did not have my headphones, but it had, and it didn't have the food. But it had my passport, my debit card, my
Wow.
ID, like all my clothes, everything was there. And the things I lost, like small price to pay for the
Yeah.
lesson I learned,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
surrender. Like none of that happened.
And sleep on your backpack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tie it to your ankle.
No, after that, I didn't worry about it anymore. Like
Yeah.
because I just knew that everything I needed would always be there as long as I trusted and surrendered. And like that was the next point is you know Matthew, like I had this idea of what I needed to do in that moment when Catherine pulled into the parking lot. But that thought was incomplete. It was not whole. It was a fear. And when
Yeah,
I
and fear is an interesting character that lives within us. And fear, we gave fear the job to scare us, and some of us have a really strong fear that does a very good job.
Mm-hmm.
But we gave it the job.
Right.
So if you want to stop being afraid or feel less afraid, give fear a new job.
exactly.
Yeah, I did that with fear. And fear still shows up, scaring me
Yeah,
at different times.
fear is now my guide. That's the job I gave it.
It's
And fear is, and fear is my empowerer. And whenever fear gets out of hand, I say, that's not your job anymore. Empower me. And so then I feel the empowerment and the fear. But
yeah.
as Susan Jeffers says, feel the fear and do it anyway. Because fear is not going to go away.
Yeah.
It's not going to go away. So you can't, a lot of people wait to do things, wait until they're not afraid to do them. And then they never do them.
Yeah, never gonna happen.
It's like skiing. I don't know if either of you ski, but as a young person, I skied. And I would sometimes get on the wrong trail. And all of a sudden I was on one of those trails that, you look down, goes like this. And I think, I'm on the wrong trail, but I can't get back there. So I got to go forward. And that's been my motto, is just keep going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what the universe throws in your way. It's just keep moving forward. Show up, keep moving forward, and ask. Ask.
Yeah.
You can't, I'm sorry. I don't know how to turn that phone off. It's a landline. And
we don't try for
when
No problem. It keeps us on our toes.
when I'm doing hypnosis on Zoom for people and the phone rings, I say to them, as you hear the bells, let the bells take you deeper. Each time the ringing of the bell takes you deeper and deeper. Because you got to use what's there. I can't say to the person, oh dear, the phone. They'll be like this on the call, and I'll say, oh dear, the phone. No, you don't want to do that. It takes you deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's like a I mean, I can apply that same lesson, what you're just saying, to like music. You know, if you're performing in front of however many people and you like strum the wrong chord or you forget the words, it's like you stop, like, oops, sorry, that was the wrong chord, everybody. So you know, I really messed that up. And it's like they have no idea that you like. It's like I meant to do that, but it's like but you go with it, and it's and I would even say it enhances the experience because it's in that in that improvised moment that it's in that love affair with the unknown that new moments that you didn't expect happen, and it's like and we experience our own humanity in others. So I love that.
I love improv.
Me too.
For that reason, and
Me too.
I love doing live television. Oh my goodness, that's fun. Because again, there's 8 million people watching you or whatever. And, when I did the Oprah show, there was a gentleman there who asked the worst question. The worst question. And I didn't know how to answer it. And I had this image as he's asking me this question, I'm thinking, you're asking me that question? And and he was nasty. It was a very it was a moment. And I'm feeling, half the audience turning off their television in that moment. I'm going, oh, this is not good. And he was arguing with me when I was there. And I finally looked at him and I said, look, I'm trying to help you. Why are you arguing? This isn't going to serve you. And he stopped. But it was a moment. But I loved live television. When I used to do TV in New York, every Sunday morning was live. And one of the co-hosts and I would start bantering during part of my segment. And it was so much fun because I never knew what he was going to say. And he always tried to trip me up in some playful way. And I learned how to come back fast. And again, it's like doing improv. When you're doing improv, the teacher or the director or whoever it is going to say, okay, do this and this and this. And it's like, okay, but you can't wait. You can't even finish the okay. You just have to jump in and do it. And that's life.
Yeah.
We're all living improv.
Yeah. I think there's so much, I mean, like the principle, like the philosophy or in improv is the most beautiful thing to apply to life. Like, because it's like you play with what you're served, not what you wish you had, not what you'd like. It's like you can use the present moment and dance and it's like it's just like Matthew, it's like it's surrendering and it's accepting. It's like it's one of the principles of improv is yes and. So whatever, like the whole point is it's not to like stand out and look at me, I'm really funny, I'm really great. It's like it's whatever anyone else has given you who's involved in this improv moment, you feed what they like. You don't say, no, I don't like that idea, I'm going to use this idea instead. And but it works like that in the universe and just every moment. It's like when we can find the dance and find the joy in the laughter, and it's just like it's how you live. It's like it's like if your life is monotonous and you're like, I have to do the same walk to work every day, and I have to do this, and I pass the same people every day. It's like I pass the same mailman. It's like, well, one time, why don't you give the mailman a high five, and the next time maybe it's like every time is an opportunity. Like the quality of your life you can create with just going with the flow and being, using the universe to create something new and exciting that you would not have had otherwise.
Well, I live the philosophy, yes, and say yes and figure it out. And it really is. It's like when I told Joni Evans that I had an outline. I said yes, and then I wrote it over the weekend because I knew that I had an opportunity here. And that's the other thing is life. There are opportunities that come along, and when we pause or hesitate, they can go right on by. When we say yes, and then say, okay, now how do I do this? What do I do? What do I do? And figure it out. And sometimes you're going to fall flat on your face, and sometimes you're going to sail right through. And falling on your face is not fun, but you certainly learn a lot. I've fallen on my face probably too many times. And I prefer, I've been rich and
daily here.
Yeah,
daily.
I have been rich and I have been poor, and of the two, I prefer rich. I have been successful and I have been a failure, and of the two, I prefer success. But without the failure, I mean, what I learned in those 8 to 10 months where I didn't have a home, and how I learned to count on myself and ask and get creative, really creative. Yeah. And the universe provides.
Exactly. And this takes us right back to imagination, action, change,
Results.
results.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So true. The universe does provide, and it's a matter of remembering that. It's like, because even in the perceived scarcity, it's providing us something that we don't see yet. You know, it's like we're not. It's like there's always. That's the thing. There's always. If I'm afraid of things that are bad things happening to me, and I'm because of things that happened in the past, and I'm in fear of bad things happen to me, I'm only going to see that it's like, oh, there's a bad thing that could happen. Someone walks in the room, oh, there's something bad that could happen. But if the opposite is true, it's like, if we know that even in the ugliest things, there's still beauty to see, there's still lessons to learn. We can learn. We can teach ourselves to seek the beauty when it's ugly, to seek the peace when there's chaos.
And the other thing, I remember, it's like, you don't have to like the struggle, but don't let it stop you.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
I have another story. When I was about 7, my mother was a world-class rock climber. I had such an amazing childhood. So my mother's taking me climbing. We went climbing twice in the fall and in the spring in a mountain range in the Catskills. It was called the Shawangunks. My mother did many of the original climbs, and she was really well known in the climbing world. So I'm 7, I'm little, and I'm 77 now, and I'm still little, but I was much littler then. And I'm on the cliff, and I have no fear. I'm roped in. My mother's on this side of me, and her climbing partner, Hans Kraus, is on this side of me. And I'm climbing. And I don't know if either of you have ever rock climbed.
Mm-hmm.
So, you might have a handhold that's a handhold and a foothold. So you're basically climbing up the cliff, going on pencil thin rocks thingies. I don't know what it's
literally
called.
on your fingertips.
Yeah, on your fingertips and on the side of your feet, not on your actual toes. So and every once in a while I couldn't reach because I'm little. And I'd say, "Booth, mommy." I had a lisp. "Booth, mommy." And my mother would put her hand under my rear and give me a little tiny boost, and I'd reach it and I'd go up. Now, unknowns to me, the top of this particular cliff had an overhang. Came out like this. And my mother had to figure out how to get me over the overhang. What my mother didn't know was that between the overhang and the cliff face, there was a tiny hole where the rock didn't connect with the actual cliff. My mother's over here trying to find a way for me to get over. Hans is over here trying to find a way for me to get over. I'm in the middle and I scoot right up. My mother turns and her daughter is gone. And it's, "Where's Suzy?" And I lean over the top. I look down. I said, "I'm here, mommy." I didn't see the obstacle. That's a metaphor. When you don't see the obstacle, it's not there. Carolyn Mace tells a wonderful story. She lives in Chicago. She probably still lives in Chicago. And she and a friend were driving through a park. I don't know. It's they're going from one place to another. And all of a sudden they find themselves in the middle of, it seemed like a celebration. There were things flying over and happy dancing and yelling, and cars stopped and honking. And it was just an amazing, oh my God, there's a festival here. And they get out of the park and they learned that there was a riot. And the car in front of them got smashed in, and the car behind them got smashed in. But they were at a festival. It's like what you see.
Create our own obstacles.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, so there's so many. I mean, I love the opportunity to tell my stories because they're so off the wall.
I love it, and I think it's very apropos that you have a publishing company that you are the source of sharing stories, including your own and others. And I think it just shows like the wisdom in the power of story, and how we learn these lessons through our shared expression. And it's like, and I just acknowledge you for being that in the world, because it's like it makes the world better to it's little stories that you've shared, countless just in this last hour, that people remember, and like, have we heard this story, have we heard that story? And it's like, it's we forget that this, like, it's the storytellers like yourself that make it makes this world better, and I lose sight of I like a story. It's just, I feel lighter just hearing you share what you shared.
Well,
and I
thank
just
you.
really appreciate and honor you for just sharing with us all the insight in your story, and all the other little stories, that itty bitty stories that you're continuing to share with us all.
Yeah. So Matthew, would you put that link up again? And let me tell the viewers and the listeners, my gift is 4 hypnosis processes to bring you more wealth. And Greg Reed, I don't know if you know him. He is he wrote the book 3 Feet from Gold. He listens to my hypnosis processes on wealth, and he told me that he increased his income 3 times in 1 month by listening to them. So get them and listen to them, and also my 4 processes on writing a bestseller. So you all need to be able to write your own bestseller. We all need more money. So go ahead and please stop saying, any of you who do, I just need enough. No, you need more than enough. You can't give just enough away, but if you have more than enough, you have enough to give away. So stop thinking of yourself, I need just enough, and start thinking of the world. When I have more than enough, I can give money away. When I was in New York, when I lived in New York, I had what I call a Suzy fund. And I would take 5% of my money that I earned and put it in my Suzy fund, and give it to a charity, a specific charity. Whenever any one of my friends were in trouble, I would just write them a check. And I would say, give it when you can, give it back or pay it forward. And if you're going to give somebody money, never expect it back. I got a lot of money back, but I also didn't get a lot of money back. But it's really about, if you have it, you can give it away. So go to that link, ittybittypublishing.com 24378/event-free-gift.hotmail HTM, and get your free gifts from me, because you've got a lot to give the world, and my processes might be able to help you do it.
Thank you, Suzy.
My pleasure.
You so much. I'm gonna click link. I mean, everything what you're sharing. Well, I mean, what you're just sharing about the hypnosis for money is like, that seems very relevant for me right now. So I can absolutely.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not? So I'm gonna put that in the comments too, so everybody can look at it.
Great. Thank you.
But thank you so much, Suzy, for sharing again with us. It's just such a pleasure, and I would love to have you back again soon to share more of your stories. And it's such.
I got some good ones that I've got in my back pocket.
I know you do.
Next time.
We're definitely looking forward to it.
Thank you.
I just really appreciate you being here, Suzy, and thank you again for just sharing your wisdom, your insight, and your itty bitty books and stories. And thank you all. I want to take a real quick opportunity to check back in with everybody watching. I want to invite you, share your gifts, share your stories. What have you experienced in your life that you could share, and benefit us all. That's what the stage is for. It's not about me. It's not about any one person. It's about us all and the gifts you have to share that benefit us all. And that's what we're here for, is we want to receive the gifts that you have so we can share them with the world, because what you've been through is what makes us all grow. And this is our mission here at One Day, is bringing you and me and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. And that's one story at a time. And our vision here at One Day is humanity rising in a connected world, with each person's unique contributions being valued and magnified through collaboration, producing unprecedented new realms of possibility. Thank you again, Suzy, for being with us, and thank you all for tuning in. We will see you all on Thursday. Be safe, be well. I love you all, and as always, one day is today.